you go down the road, you'll see where Mount Roskill and Mount Eden boroughs from the old days, pre-1989, met together, and the street will run along like that, and then suddenly it will become narrower because they had different planning rules.
Right.
That is so silly. And today we want to plan for the whole city, but we also want to keep local government local, so that the local boards reflect the particular area that they are responsible for, and are close to the electorate. As mayor, my job would be a lot more challenging because I'm representing 1.5 million people. Now, coming from China, 1.5 million people is quite small, but for New Zealand, that's 35% of our entire country's population. So, in New Zealand terms, Auckland is a big city. And in New Zealand terms, Auckland is really important because we have the scale in Auckland that other cities don't have to provide choice and opportunity. We have the scale to be a small global city instead of an overgrown provincial city. So Auckland is really important to New Zealand, and the central government has to reflect that in helping Auckland meet the needs that we have as we grow. 70% of the growth of Auckland, of New Zealand, will be in Auckland. So central government has to come to the party with support for infrastructure to keep up with that growth. If we don't create the transport infrastructure and the housing infrastructure that meets the growing demand of Auckland, then we will not be the city in New Zealand that's the most livable city and one of the most livable cities in the world. And we want to, that should be our goal, to make this one of the best cities in the world to live in. That means good services as well as the scale to provide the diversity of what people want in their modern life. What are the problems that I think are the most important facing Auckland? One is to start to address that problem of transport congestion and gridlock. We are losing billions of dollars each year in lost productivity and wasted time with people caught for hours in traffic. We have to increase the supply of housing to meet the level of demand to stop house prices going through the ceiling. Otherwise our children won't be able to afford to live in the city that their parents are living in. And we need the efficiency and the effectiveness of our council structure to make the best use of the money that it has. We have to learn to do a lot more with less, rather than simply growing demands for rate increases and spending that's out of control. We need to make sure that every dollar is spent to the best effect, and we can't do that if we keep on rating people more and more highly and don't use that money efficiently to provide the services that people need. So council efficiency and effectiveness, stopping waste, stopping duplication, is really important to the future of our city. We used to have 8 councils. We brought it together into one so that it would be more efficient, there'd be less waste, less duplication. But now we've got one city and about 5 council-controlled organisations that often duplicate each other. So a registered engineer that lives locally here in my community said, to put drainage to a private house,
I want to show you something.
I used to talk to 2 engineers, now I have to talk to 9. That's just a nonsense, and we've got to learn to do things more efficiently so that we are not wasting the ratepayers' money, so that we are the best performing city in New Zealand, the best performing city in Australasia.
Yes.
One of the problems that used to exist, and probably still does, is that, you know, they'll dig up the road one day for water supply, the next day they'll dig it up for electricity supply, and the day after that they might be doing it for telecom services. There needs to be an integration of those things. But one of the problems we have is that as the city grows so fast, we have to improve that transport infrastructure. And, you know, just down the road there you will have seen those same orange cones. That's because a big new housing development is coming in, and they have to redo all the services for that. That will happen with City Rail Link. It will happen with light rail when it goes in. And it is a problem because in the short term it makes things more difficult. But in the longer term, of course, we have to have those new transport services so that this city can have people move easily from where they live to where they work and to where they take their recreation. Unfortunately, many of these things should have happened decades ago, and we are now meeting a backlog of demand for services that previous councils simply overlooked the need for. Central government also has to understand that it has a role to play. It can't say Auckland is going to grow by this level, but we are going to starve it of the finance needed to put those services in place. If you have more population but not adequate services for transport and housing, then this city becomes harder to live in, not easier.